The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Or so a scholar in the mountains had told him. Surely the weapon that banished the lost gods could defeat the Emperor. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Emperor had brought the Sky Ripper pieces up out of ancient burial by his obscene rituals. Could this be where the Iblis stone was hidden? Someone better get it before he does, thought Renato. And also, his old friend Lupino needed rescuing. Of course, Renato had a pretty strong suspicion that Lupino had betrayed the rebellion. But could Renato really leave an old friend to the Ravens? The island was windswept desert. No one went there except ostriches and ostrich hunters. The Iblis stone. It sounded ominous. It sounded powerful. If the Emperor was searching for it, it must be dangerous. And so, Renato went ostrich hunting. Every child could sing verses about the Sky Ripper, but ancient codices held hints of other things. A stone that ate souls, a ruby that drank blood, a jewel only a righteous man could give away. Were all these things the Iblis stone? Long hidden in a buried temple? Another ancient item that was only resurfacing now? Drawn up from the deeps by the Emperor's horrific rituals? Oh, you shouldn't have. This chest had teaspoons stolen from every inn in Boreas. Oh, and something more useful. The air here tasted bitter. The steps were too tall for a person. The entire place felt restless, like it had been vexed to nightmare under the dust, waiting for its hour to come around at last. Wasn't making a dent in those shields. Ravens were already here, cawing in frustration. They were still searching for a way in. Good. Then he hadn't come too late.
Well, he always wanted to do that.
Mother never let him wave his sword around at home. He guessed he was being compensated for that.
If they didn't want their things broken, they really ought to make them stronger.
What were these poles exactly? Parking meters from the time of the lost gods?
Hey, do old ravens go grey? You know what? Don't worry about it.
It was a bit windy up here.
Boy, someone has spent a lot of money for a graduation present. shouldn't get impatient. He needed to take the time to figure out what all his experience had brought him.
I'm sorry. Was that your shield?
What's there? The rock felt hot in his hand. He could feel its secret power. The Ravens, at least, could not get past this point. Obviously, the temple builders knew how to deal with tomb raiders. Bernardo hated cannon traps. Also, who reloaded these things anyway? He never figured that part out. It was a stone of the purest blackness. It reflected no light, like a void made solid. Nervous, he picked it up. I can make you mighty. Who said that? Give me blood. It was the stone, eager, thirsty. That seemed tempting and terribly wrong. Zenobia was the Emperor's greatest general and a potent witch. But they had been close once, and Bernardo wasn't sure he really wanted to be Emperor. Why not capture the core of Sky Ripper instead? It was the eye of a lost god torn out by the transcendent Emperor to power his greatest weapon. It's the core, said the stone anxiously. Was he listening to a talking rock? Ah, but the rock had a point. If the stone could truly turn him into a powerful warrior, he could defeat the Emperor with the very weapon the wicked old toad had sought for himself. To be a hero, you had to sacrifice old friends sometimes, especially when they've become enemies. As he placed the impossibly black crystal in his gauntlet, Renato had a sudden vision. Charred fields covered in dead ravens below a black sun. Was it the time of the lost gods before the transcendent emperor? Was it the future? Feed these souls, it whispered. Take the power. He could feel the stone's hunger for souls, its thirst for blood. All right, I get it. This was going to be interesting. With materials like this, he could probably make a really nice pair of barbecue tongs. Or even a sword. This was the nice part of town, but the ravens had been through here. They like to take shiny things home to their nests. On Zenobia's island were no match for Renato. They screamed as the stones sucked out their souls. And with each death, he felt stronger. Take the power, the stone told him. People had laughed at the government workbench placement program, but you could see the benefits everywhere. Hey! Hey! I'm a firefox, thought Renato. Smashing things was fun. Zenobia was leading the Imperial Ravens here. She loved to be in the vanguard, where the danger was, where she needed her wits. Renato pitied whoever she was fighting, especially if it was him. Gogglers. Renato hated gogglers. It was almost impossible to sneak past them. If one didn't spot you, another one would. Renato hated gogglers, and it freaked him out to cut them. This one looked familiar. Had he lost this one in a card game? Welcome back, he thought. Zenobia was waiting for Renato. She was alone, confident as always. Fire danced at the tips of her claws.
Are you here to surrender?
She seemed as cocksure as he felt. But she didn't know he had the stone.
And I've missed you too, love.
He chuckled. She spotted the stone and bolted without another word. The mysterious sword from the east made you so fast you could catch a fly with your chopsticks. If that's what you really wanted. Renato remembered when he'd first stolen one of these. Good times. Finally, Renato caught up to her. He had never seen her scared before. At school, she'd been the determined, brave one. Now her eyes were wide, frightened. He didn't like seeing her this way.
Kill her, whispered the stone. You cannot win your rebellion without it.
Please. No, said Zenobia. Not that way. Oh, they had been so close once. Could he really feed her soul to his demonic gem? But if he spared her, he would not get the full power of the stone. Oh, how could he be the hero he wanted to be? Renato hesitated. Zenobia was his greatest enemy. She was the Emperor's daughter and his greatest general, and the single person Renato least wanted to remove from this world, especially that way. She was holding her arms out before her, hands fluttering, fending him off with hopeless urgency. Nope, she was weaving a spell. He couldn't move.
This thing is evil, she said. She slid the Iblastone out of its slot in his gauntlet and slipped it into a bag. Maybe we can learn from it.
She eyed him with a strange, wry, apologetic look. I missed you too. And before he could move again, she was gone. Learn from the Iblastone? What did that mean? Would she take it to the palace or to the observatory on the Nexus? If she thought it was evil, she wouldn't want it in the palace. Maybe I can outrace her to the observatory, thought Renato. Cats can run faster, but foxes can run longer. Renato felt a little sick. Ever since Zenobia had taken the stone from him, he'd felt an ache that wouldn't go away. He missed it. He wanted it back. He needed it back. Why hadn't he killed her when he had the chance? She was the enemy. He hadn't even seen her in 14 years. Why had he hesitated? You're a sucker for an empowered woman. Renato kicked himself. Don't make that mistake again.
If only he had some way to break the ice. Or convince it he was a friend.
He wished there were more pylons he could use the hook on. They really needed to construct additional pylons.
gone rather well, actually.
Zenobia thought the stone was evil. Was it? He longed to have it back. He'd felt so good killing ravens with it. And yet, he'd felt unclean ever since he'd touched it. She confused him. She'd made him want to be a better fox. And then she'd abandoned him, never telling him she was the Emperor's daughter. Never contacting him since. Well, who was she to tell him the stone was evil?
And while he was trying to recover the stone Zenobia had taken from him, the Imperial fleet was tightening its grip. He might fail to save the rebellion, and it would all be her fault. Renato felt a burst of outrage. Not only had she stolen his gem, she'd also stolen his scientists. Sure, they were neutral, but they had helped him discover what the Emperor was up to. They were supposed to be helping me, Renato thought. So unfair.
Renato wondered what would happen if he jumped. Would he be rescued by an emergency platform?
Say, how do you guys fix for life insurance?
The scientist's toes were pointing arcane instruments at the stone and looking at it through prisms and reflections.
Mine, said Reynardo as he took back the stone.
Well, we need it for science,
croaked the toads. So he killed them. He felt better immediately. Smarter, too.
I thought you'd never come for me,
whispered the stone. Then, a far-speaker toad croaked in something like Zenobia's voice.
Reynardo, leave the stone with the toads. It will swallow your soul. You will kill everyone you love.
But Reynardo had an army to lead, an empire to bring down. Whispered the stone. It was right. Wasn't Zenobia the Emperor's greatest general? Wasn't Reynardo fighting for the rebellion? Of course you wouldn't want him to have it.
Wouldn't you make a better emperor than Isaac III?
Added the stone. You know what? I would, thought Reynardo. Or maybe he said it out loud. He would go see the council and lead their armies to victory. All he had to do was call them on the far speaker. Ah, damn. Well, wouldn't they be surprised anyway? Ah, the ruins. Reynardo had come there as a kid when it was still the fabulous city of Ubar. Before the Emperor's ravens had come to pillage ancient books from its library and destroyed it. Now the rebel council lay hidden underneath the ruins. And between here and there, all these ravens to kill. They deserved it for what they'd done to the city. And the faster he could kill them, the more of a rush they gave him. Come in handy in a pinch. There were stickers all over the platform for really hot lady foxes, with pictures and addresses and everything.
The Emperor!
Called the ravens.
Bernardo had been to a dungeon once where all the chests had teeth and eyes. It had been a short visit. Magical jewel. Bernardo couldn't wait to find a workbench. How could you convince a firewall you're its friend? The right jewel could really give you an edge. The wrong, well, it still looked pretty, didn't it? Whispered the stone. Ravens? Bernardo knew how the stone felt. Each raven he killed gave him a little jolt of pleasure. But he could only kill them so fast, and the pleasure wore off too quickly. Hopefully soon he would face a more powerful adversary. Yes, whispered the stone. But not with a bunch of mangy ravens.
Say goodnight, Gracie, said Renato, wondering who Gracie was.
The long stairs. So he was close to the rebel base. Nothing was on fire. So far, so good.
Here, fishy!
Maybe I should follow my nose, thought Renato.
Something useful in these things, didn't there? As he reached the secret entrance, he was shocked to see Zenobia talking with the council. She bore a white flag. "The council has betrayed you," whispered the stone. "Kill them." "What are you doing here, love?" Renato demanded. "Come for the brown muffins?"
"She's worried about you,"
croaked the council speaker.
"We all are."
"You're not yourself," Zenobia said. Before they could get into the rest of the intervention, he leapt at her. Unfortunately, the council speaker blocked him, so he slew her and the other council members. "I'm not giving up," cried Zenobia as she darted off into the ruins. "I think I just killed the entire rebel council," said Renato.
See how much power they've given you.
"But they were on my side, weren't they?"
No one is on your side, except for me.
He set sail for the fleet. There, at least, there would be enemies to kill. Unless that was the Iblastone talking. He could never be sure. Anyway, who needed other rebels here? They'd only get in the way. A true hero fights alone after he's got all his friends killed. You never knew where the road would take you, thought Renato. Met a pirate captain who used hooks to get around his ship. Oh, what was his name again? The world was so beautiful. Everything was glowing, breathing, alive. Except, okay, the ravens he killed. The wind was alive, like a million fingers caressing his hair. He'd never felt so powerful. He never felt so sexy. Somewhere down the path would be the Emperor. Renato would slay him, most powerful man in Erda. The Iblastone would give Renato all that power, and he would be Emperor. And then he would set everyone free.
When Renato went to the china shop, for some reason the owner was always nervous. Imagine getting a horse up in one of these things. He would be cursing a blue streak. At last, he was face to face with Zenobia. She was still unarmed. No fire crackled from her claws.
Excellent. Kill her,
Whispered the stone. He raised his sword for the killing blow. Is this what you really want? She asked. Or is it what the stone wants?
Think of the power.
Insisted the stone. I don't want to kill you, he told Zenobia, his arm still raised. I know, but he could not put the sword down. It wants blood, he told her. I know. Oh, help me, he said. She stabbed herself. Take my blood, she said.
No, you mustn't.
Cried the Iblis stone. Oh no! Why did you... He ran to embrace her, and she plunged her bloody dagger into his heart. Why? He said. We'll be together in the halls of the valiant, she said. I love you, he said. Thank you. And the Iblis stone screamed, and then it began to glow. It burst into flames. It burned like an ember. And then it was ash that blew away in the wind. And Zenobia and Renato died in each other's arms. And just like that, he was alive again, and back on the Farfarer, still fleeing burning Ubar. The book was still open before him. So, the book was a portal. It took you to the future, when your destinies would branch. He had failed and died 3 times, and he hadn't learned anything new this time. He'd done the same thing twice, yet expected a different outcome. But he was starting to feel like he was getting the hang of this. There was a way through to victory. He could feel it. He just had to keep running the path of Destinies. With that, the book fluttered back to the beginning, and he fell into it.
The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced, or so a scholar in the mountains had told him. Surely the weapon that banished the lost gods could defeat the Emperor.
Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert, as tempting as it was to explore ancient mysteries. There was a war going on, and also, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Of course, Renato had a pretty strong suspicion that Lapino had betrayed the rebellion. But could Renato really leave an old friend to the Ravens?